Welcome to Showing Up Anyway, the podcast for people who are not perfect. On this show, we talk about intuitive eating, fitness without obsession, and healing your relationship with food and your body. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here for a very special episode. And I say it's very special because this is a subject that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while. So many clients and viewers and anybody that I come across on my social media now is asking me about the hottest new thing available when it comes to weight loss, GLP1s. So today's episode is going to be focused on explaining to you what GLP medications are, what their intended purpose is, who should and shouldn't use them, and if you're someone who decides to use them, how to do that safely and intentionally without losing sight of your health or your relationship with food in the process. I want you to come away feeling informed and empowered and like you've got a game plan if you're seeking to include GLP1s or if you're already doing so on your weight loss journey. But right off the bat, I have to remind you, I am not a doctor, okay? This is not medical advice. I will say that my opinion on GLP-1s has grown more favorable the more I've learned about them, but it is not my job to tell you whether or not they are right for you. That's a decision between you and your doctor. So first off, what are GLP-1s and what do they do? GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1, which is a hormone that is already naturally produced in your body, and it's released in your small intestine when you eat. And it has a few big jobs. It triggers insulin release to help lower your blood sugar. It tells your liver to dial back your sugar production. It slows down your stomach emptying, and it signals to your brain that you are full. But some people's bodies do not produce enough, or they just don't respond properly to that hormone. And so these drugs mimic that hormone by binding to the same receptors in the body that do those jobs. They do not increase your body's natural GLP-1 hormone. They are just a synthetic substitute that sort of performs the same functions. Make sense? Originally, they were developed for people with type 2 diabetes, but because they reduce your appetite so much and they help support weight loss, they've become a really big supplement to help treat obesity. Some of the most common GLP-1 medications that you've probably heard about are semaglutide, which is also known as the brand name Ozempic, and Wegovy. It has all those fancy, catchy commercials. Semaglutide is a once-a-week injection. There's also liraglutide, which is known as the brand name Saxenda. That's a daily injection. And there's also tirzepatide, which is known as Mounjaro, which is a newer weekly injectable that activates GLP-1 and another hormone called GIP. All of these drugs basically do the same thing. They help you feel fuller sooner and longer, and they slow down how quickly food leaves your stomach and tell your brain that you have had enough. And when you take them, you find that that constant need to eat something, that food noise that's in your head, quiets down almost completely. Your cravings aren't as strong, and you're just not thinking about food 24/7. And it does work. People tend to eat about 50% less, and weight loss almost falls off as a result. And if this was a commercial, I'd stop right there. I mean, that sounds really, really good, right? But, and this is important, it is not magic. You still have a role to play in making those results happen and last. As effective as GLP-1s are, they can't do it all for you. They are only a tool, and you still are responsible for developing healthy habits to help get the best results and to stay feeling good. Things like proper nutrition and movement and self-care. So if you're on a GLP-1 or you're considering it, I've gathered some of my most helpful and practical things that are going to help you on this journey. My first tip is actually a warning. If you have struggled with disordered eating or restrictive eating disorders, it might not be a good idea for you to take this medication. Because the two things that go along with these medications, rapid weight loss and severe appetite suppression, can potentially trigger or worsen an eating disorder if you are susceptible to that. If you've gone through ED recovery, or maybe you've just been listening to my content for a while, some of you have done both, you have been working really hard to learn to tune into your hunger and eat consistently. A GLP-1 can muddle those signals by design. They can seriously suppress your appetite, and for someone with a history of undereating or obsessing over food, that is a really slippery slope back into harmful patterns. If all of a sudden you don't feel hungry anymore and you can start skipping meals, that can destabilize some of the progress that you have made towards normal eating patterns, okay? You've got to be careful. It can be dangerously reinforcing. It is so important to be on guard for these kinds of feelings and to have a support system in place. It doesn't mean you can't use them at all, but you need to be honest with your doctor, your dietitian, your therapist, ideally one that is knowledgeable about eating disorders. Regular check-ins and honest communication about what you're feeling and what you're experiencing physically and mentally are really important. Make sure you do that. My second tip is actually a tip. Even if you are not hungry, if it's been more than like 5 hours, you need to eat something. Something small is fine. But do not develop a habit of skipping meals. It was never a good idea before your medication. It is not a good idea now. One of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're taking a GLP-1 is not eating enough. Now, yes, that's the whole point, right? You're less hungry, but your body still needs to be fueled to function properly every day, right? Right. And also keep in mind that rapid weight loss is not just fat. You're also going to be losing muscle mass. So we want to try and prevent that as much as possible. We'll talk about how to do that a little bit later. But if you do lose a bunch of muscle mass, you're going to feel weak. You're going to feel frail. You're going to see, sunken in eyes. And that's why you kind of get that Ozempic face, as they say. You're losing a lot of muscle mass. You're also going to lose water weight, which can make you feel pretty crummy as well. That being said, I understand that you might not feel your best at times. You might feel a little more bloated and full than normal, especially if you've just taken your medication. But one thing that I recommend for clients who are on this is to drink your calories, okay? Like a smoothie or a protein shake. If you don't feel like eating anything, a little Both House Farms or a Naked drink can really help you sip on some much needed calories, even if your tummy is a little bit sensitive. A lot of GLP-1 users are going to have days where it's like 3 p.m. and they realize that all they've had is coffee that morning and maybe like half a yogurt. It is way too easy to forget to eat because your usual hunger signals just aren't there. And while this can be a little bit freeing, right? No more obsessing over snacks, that can backfire if you are not careful. Going long stretches without food is going to make you feel fatigued. It's going to make you feel weak. And over time, that is not great for your overall health and it's not great for your metabolism. So how do we make sure that we are eating enough? The biggest thing is to plan it out and start to make a routine. If you do not have the urge to eat, then think about your meals like taking your medicine, something that you do to keep your body healthy. Try to have at least 3 small meals or mini meals spaced throughout the day. Set alarms if you need to. The key is consistency. Even if your brain is not sounding the alarm for food, I want you to try and eat on a schedule. Your energy, your mood, your long-term weight outcomes are going to be better if you avoid putting your body into that malnutrition state, okay? You don't want that. The goal is not, and I say this often, it is not to eat as little as humanly possible. It is to eat enough to feel good and stay healthy while that GLP-1 works in the background. Third, like any medication, GLP-1s have side effects, specifically gastrointestinal side effects like nausea, diarrhea, constipation, heartburn, though how much those affect you depends on the type of GLP-1. I think Ozempic tends to hit you a little harder than like Mounjaro, but it also depends on the dose. They're probably going to hit you hardest either right after you take the shot or about 24 hours later, and then they'll die down as the week goes on. What can be really helpful is to take your shot, your medication right before bed to kind of help mitigate how much you feel them if you are worried about that. But here's where the tip kicks in, okay? Beyond those side effects, there are also side effects of undereating and rapid weight loss. Extreme fatigue, irritability, hair loss, constantly being cold, nausea, brain fog, lightheadedness. If you don't want to feel worse than what the medication is making you, you need to fuel your body properly. And we'll talk about how to do that in a little bit. My fourth tip, make movement mandatory. You can choose how you do that. Okay, but lifting, walking, biking, swimming, something needs to happen. Lifting weights can really help you preserve muscle mass, so I always recommend doing that. Building and keeping muscle will help maintain your metabolism in the long run as well, but any sort of gentle, regular activity is really fantastic. I've heard that walking right after you take a dose can really be helpful in reducing side effects, but that's probably a little subjective. But that can also help with circulation. It's good for stress, your mental health, and it's just good habit to get into regularly. So find a way to fit regular exercise in. But on that same note, it's important to mention that you should really pay attention to how you feel when you are exercising on a GLP-1. If you are eating less, you're going to find that you're probably tired a little bit faster, or you might need to scale back the intensity at first. You might not be able to lift as much as you once did. That's okay. All right. If you feel dizzy or you feel exhausted, that's your cue to take a break, have a snack, go a little lighter. Fitness is not all or nothing. Okay. You don't need to always lift more than you used to. If you're changing your habits, if you're changing your lifestyle, you have to understand that your performance is going to change with that. What's important is that you are listening to your body. On days that you have more energy, maybe you do a longer workout or you go for a longer bike ride. On days that you are feeling wiped, maybe you just do some gentle stretching or just do your normal daily chores around the house. That's enough movement. Honor your body's limits and move because it's good for your body and it's good for your mind. Don't do it out of obligation. So let's talk about some of the changes that you're going to notice if you're taking GLP-1s. You are not, I repeat, you are not going to be able to eat the same way you did before. Okay, GLP-1s, as I mentioned, cut people's appetites by about 50%. If you used to eat a whole Chipotle burrito, now you might feel completely full on half or a third. You really have to learn to slow down and to listen to your fullness cues, okay? Don't force yourself to finish large portions. You are going to be extremely uncomfortable. Your stomach empties a lot slower now, so you're going to get fuller longer and sooner. So if you eat a big meal like you used to, you're going to feel bloated, you're going to feel nauseous, you're going to feel like you want to throw up. That is not fun. You will feel like shit, and you're going to go the rest of the day without eating and probably some of the next day too. That is not how we create sustainable habits. Instead, focus on small, intentional meals. Start with a lot less than you'd normally eat. Chew well, pay attention to your fullness, and then stop when you're feeling satisfied. It's going to happen sooner than you think. And as I already told you, do not go hours and hours without eating anything, okay? These medications lower your blood sugar. And so if you go too long without eating on top of that and you let your blood sugar crash, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel shaky. You're going to have a headache. You're going to feel exhausted. You're going to be irritable, dizzy, or a host of other symptoms. It could be helpful to have some fruit juice, some dried fruit, a Rice Krispie treat, a banana, some applesauce, some sort of quick digesting carbohydrate on hand to bring that blood sugar up just in case. And since you are eating less food overall, the quality matters more than ever. Think about it. You have limited real estate in your stomach now, so you have to start filling it up with the good stuff. You don't have to be perfect, but you do need to start making an attempt to fill your belly with more nutritious foods. That means focusing on balanced, nutrient-dense meals with a lot of whole foods, a focus on protein and fiber, and definitely plenty of fluids. Protein helps you maintain your muscle mass when you lose weight. Fiber helps your digestion and keeps your bowel movements regular, which is really important, especially when you have constipation and diarrhea as side effects. So you want foods like eggs and beans and tofu and poultry and leafy greens, roasted veggies, berries, whole grains like quinoa and rice, but in small amounts, okay? Now, you might hear all this and think, Adam, this is cruel. Not only can I not eat the amounts of foods that I want to eat, but I also can't eat the yummy foods that I like, the pizzas, the fries. Listen, you don't have to completely avoid those foods, okay? We all like the greasy, fried food, the high sugar foods, but you do need to please keep it to smaller amounts, okay? You are not going to feel your best if you eat those foods that often. The good news is, though, that medication is going to make it so you don't crave those foods as much anyway. It's mostly going to be a matter of breaking those habits of ordering those foods when you order DoorDash or you go out to a restaurant or something like that. Now, I mentioned fluids. It is absolutely crucial that you stay hydrated on a GLP-1. When you are eating less, you might also be drinking less without realizing it, and side effects like nausea or diarrhea can sneakily dehydrate you too. So sip on water throughout the day, have an emotional support water bottle. Water is going to be your friend. It's going to greatly reduce side effects. It's also going to help to add at least one portion of electrolytes every day if you can. I want to go over something that I said a little bit earlier, just in case the message was not clear. Do not fall into the trap of letting GLP-1s do all the work, because they work almost too well. They can be so effective that it's easy to think that you just don't have to make any lifestyle changes. But those results will not last if you do not put in the work to create healthy habits that support the life that you want to live. There have already been studies that show that when people who have not developed these kinds of habits get off this medication, they gain the weight right back. They can be a healthy tool on your weight loss journey, but they are just that, a tool. They are not a magic cure-all. They will not fix your habits for you. You've got to do that yourself. So while the medication is doing its thing, incorporate all the things that we have talked about on this podcast. Find some movement that you enjoy and that you can do regularly. Prioritize your sleep and your stress management. Drink plenty of water. Eat with intention and with mindfulness. And of course, stay mindful of emotional and distracted eating as well. Now, unfortunately, there is still a negative stigma attached to this medication, which we shouldn't be surprised about, right? I mean, diet culture is never happy. Society doesn't want you to be fat, so you try and lose weight. But when you have trouble doing that, you go to your doctor, you get some medication to try and do that. But then society is not happy with that because you didn't do it the right way, and it's just never enough. Stop trying to please society. Fuck them. Using something like a GLP-1 for your weight or for your food noise is not cheating. Okay, it's not something to feel weird or ashamed about. It is just another form of support and a medication for weight management, similar to one for high cholesterol or high blood pressure. But you are the one that is making the changes happen. I want to read you a text from a client who spent about a year and a half working with me before recently starting on Mounjaro. And here is what he said. Let me grab my phone. He said, I feel like after working with you, I got a lot of my life back from the constant fear and personal judgment. And the GLP-1 has given me that last 15% that was still causing me to think about food all the time. I literally just live my life now and eat food when my body needs it. It's so freeing. I am really happy for him. He did the work. But GLP-1 or no GLP-1, that kind of peace where you can trust your body, where you can eat when you're hungry and actually enjoy your life without obsessing over food can be really life-changing. And it is possible to achieve. You are in the driver's seat of your own body and you're allowed to do whatever works for you. Thanks for being with me here today. I'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Showing Up Anyway. You can find it for free on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And wherever you're listening, if you like the show, I'd love it if you gave me a 5-star review because that does help other people find the show. And hopefully it'll help change their life just like you're looking to change yours. If you're listening on Spotify though, you can follow me and tap the bell icon so you get notifications when new episodes come out. I'm Coach Adam. Remember, when things get challenging, keep showing up anyway.